Hi, this is Patsy with a Z. Welcome to Joy on Paper Live, a program for writers and those who dream of writing, and for everyone who wants to know the story behind the book. And I am so happy to welcome to Joy on Paper Carol J. Perry because, wow, here are her books, and we're going to be talking about them in a minute. But I just wanted to look at them for a minute because here is Carol J. Perry. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Patsy. Good to see you.
Oh, it's so good to see you. I have to tell everyone, Carol was the first guest in the studio when I started Joy on Paper over 9 years ago. And I remember the day so well. It was really very strange. And this happened all the time. I discovered with Carol. We live in Florida, and Florida is beautiful, sunshiny. And when you came, it was April. It was a beautiful day, spring day. I remember as I was going to the studio, I was thinking, oh, it's beautiful. And then you arrive in the studio. The sky turned black. Everything was spooky. It was really scary. And of course, you were there to talk about your first book in your Witch City Mystery Series.
That's right.
And I have to tell people, Carol was born on Halloween Eve
Halloween
in
Eve.
Salem.
Mhm.
And so it's a little spooky there, Carol.
I know. That's half the fun of having the Witch City Mysteries. And that April day must have been release time of my first Witch City Mystery, my first mystery of any sort. And that would have been that's 10 years, be 10 years.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. It's
And
crazy
in
how the
that
years have
time,
gone.
I'm now working on book 15 of that same series.
I know. And we're going to talk about book 14 before we finish this interview today because
Okay.
it's exciting. This year, you have two books out, this one, then one in August. And I don't
Yep.
know if you're going to do another one later in
Uh,
the year.
There was another Witch City, but that was at the end of 2023, so we
So
can't really
So
squish that.
it's amazing what you've done in these 10 years. I feel like we've grown up together here. Really have, because it was so thrilling for me. You were my fourth interview. I had done three with people in New York City. That was exciting, but there's nothing like having somebody in the studio. To have a guest in the studio, I was so thrilled. And I was so scared of you because you were an author and I had just started and you were my first live author. And I was actually scared. And when I look back on it, it's so cute. I'm scared of you.
I'm not scary.
No, when the sky darkened, the thunder rolled over the studio. There was
And
much.
almost every other time that I've been in the studio in person, it has rained.
Yes,
I can't account for it. I didn't do anything special to make it happen, but there it is.
there it is. Of course, as you said, that Witch City Mystery series is going strong and with finishing book 15. But as if that wasn't enough for you, you just being one of these people, multitasking people who likes to do a lot of things, you decided to do another series. And here it is, the
Yep.
Haunted Haven series, which is really fantastic. The first book, of course, was Be My Ghost. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yes, these books are all based in Florida, which is my current home. Although the mayor of Salem told me that Salem is my forever home, no matter where I live, and it probably is. But they had asked me at Kensington, my wonderful publisher, if I could do a paranormal series. And of course, I said, "Oh yes, of course." And then looked up paranormal in the dictionary, and it was a delightful challenge because I do like ghosty things, ghoulies and ghosties and things that go bump in the night. And so that was just the inspiration I needed to dream up some ghosts. And I've had fun with them ever since. And hopefully the readers are too.
And then,
I,
of course, that one it came out strong. Just hit the bookshelves, and everybody loved it. And it got a Publishers Weekly start.
you were the one that let me know that. I hadn't even heard it from my publisher, and you saw it and called me.
Oh,
Yeah, you got a starred review, and I said,
well,
"Oh," you said,
well,
"Carol, nobody gets a starred review on book one,"
I
and I
know. It was so exciting, and people people who don't know, really, it is a coveted. People want this starred review from Publishers Weekly, and I will tell you, and there are some very famous authors who have never received a starred review. And I was talking to one of them, somebody who's been writing for many more years than you, and still has not had a starred review from publishers.
I hope that author gets one because it is really a thrilling thing,
It
and,
is a thrilling
and
thing.
it looks really good on your resume.
Oh, it looks great. It really
And
looks
speaking
great.
of things that look good, you saw the dog on the cover.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Finn.
That's
And
our Finn.
the only lines that Finn ever has in the books is woof.
Woof.
But he says it very nicely.
He says it very nicely.
He does.
And being a Finn, I like that name. So
I love my dog. He's lovely.
well, he's adorable. And you did book one, and then of course we got to book two, which was another exciting one, High Spirits,
Yep.
and that's a lot of fun too.
And then Haunting License.
And
And then there's one in the works that I have just done copy edits, on which I have just done copy edits. And that one will be out spring of 2025.
my goodness.
And you're going to ask me the title of it, aren't you? And Patsy, when you do this mini series and this, it's like trying to name the seven dwarfs quickly, and I can't do it. Begins with S, and I'll think of it in a minute, and you can watch for it next year. But I am enjoying my ghosts very much. I keep inventing new ones. The book that I just turned in has a new ghost, and it also has an old ghost that we have mentioned a number of times previously, but we have not met that ghost yet until this book 4 in the Haunted Haven series. Haven itself is a composite of a number of the Florida small towns that the big parks have passed by. And a lot of it is Gulfport, Florida, and also a little bit of Cedar Key, a little bit of Safety Harbor, a little bit of Sanford, just bits and pieces of places I have visited in this lovely state when I was doing travel writing.
And that's a big part of the background of where you were able to, once you hit the ground running with these books, you have this wonderful background.
A lot of nonfiction, a lot of research. I love research. And I don't know whether many of the viewers know, but I am a total pantser. Writers are either plotters or pantsers. A plotter has the plot all figured out, know who the killer is and why the person is dead and how they're going to solve the case. And a pantser, like me, is one that writes by the seat of their pants. And I don't know when I start where I'm going with it. And as things turn up that I need to learn, I learn them on a needs to know basis. For instance, in Haunting License, I had to learn a little bit. I had a character that had to climb a tree really skillfully. So he had to be an arborist. I don't know any arborists except the guys that trim the oak trees in my front yard occasionally. So I talked to one of them who didn't know he was being interviewed, but I had to learn a little bit about that. Plus, I went online and looked it up. Then, when I had, because most of the friends I have in Gulfport knew that Gulfport was a major part of this, I was given a tour of some Indian mounds that happened to be in Gulfport. So I wrote Indian mounds into this book, and I had learned a little bit by going on the tour, but I also knew Mac Perry, Florida writer who has written Indian mounds you can visit, and I had his book, and that was helpful. And my co-heroine in this book is Dr. Kimberly Salter. Now, occasionally, I donate the fact that I will name a character in a book after someone, and I donate it to a group called Women's History Project. And Dr. Kimberly Salter was the winner of the naming. And the real Dr. Kimberly Salter is a psychologist, but I made my Dr. Kimberly Salter into an archaeologist. And she really liked that. She has seen the book and likes it very much. And so those are a few things I had to research. I involved, of course, a fishing tournament. There's Finn in the boat with his fish. And having fished a few fishing tournaments, I was familiar with that. But I had fished mine in Massachusetts, so I had to look up the laws and rules of fishing tournaments in Florida, which are different. There are always police procedures that have to be considered because I don't want to make any glaring errors there. So there's a lot of research that goes into it, though it seems like just a silly little ghost story. The readers are very perceptive and will pick you up on
Oh yeah.
any mistakes, and they do, and they will, and I'm sure there are some here. I in one of the Witch City books I mentioned Forsythia bush, and I immediately heard from several readers that it's the wrong season. They weren't really ready to be blooming yet when I had them in the book. So you have to be careful with even little details like that.
Oh yes. Readers are very perceptive and they pay
Oh, yeah.
attention. So let's talk about the beginning of this series. So you got the sort of suggestion of writing a series, and you drew upon your own background in major department stores and working with ad
Mhm.
copy. It's always interesting how an author, they've got the basic idea of, I'm going to write a book about this, but where they come with that first moment when they know the character, they know the name, everything. Did it all pop into your head?
No, it doesn't pop easily. Several of the books have started with just a name that came from who knows where, the universal intelligence or something. A name comes into my head. Sometimes it's something I've read in the paper. Sometimes it's a little bit of something I've seen on TV. Sometimes it's a piece of furniture that's just the germ of the idea that's going to grow into the book. One of my characters in the Haunted Haven used to be a department store buyer because I know that business, I know that background. And in some of the Witch City mysteries, the action takes place in a closed up brick and mortar department store. And I know that building very well. Mine was a wonderful grand old department store in Gloucester, Massachusetts, where I was ad manager and sales promotion manager for 12, 13 happy years.
What was the name of that store? Is it?
Browns of Gloucester was a family owned department store, great big one. But people who read the book, depending where they are, think it's Dayton's or Mars Brothers or some major or Filene's, some major department store where they live. So that's very nice. They can identify with those old stores and those old departments and the pneumatic tubes where the money went up to the office and came back down to the different departments. And I miss those big old brick and mortar stores, which are rapidly disappearing.
Well, yes,
But I could keep them in the books, so
it
that's
is
a.
nice. It is nice to read about them. It
Mhm.
gives you fond memories, pneumatic tubes, and also elevators where they had people working in the elevators, opening the
I
door for you.
was shopping with a couple of great granddaughters, and they traveled about the store a great deal more than I was in one of the stores in over at Countryside Mall. And I was sitting there waiting for them to return, and these two young girls came over and said, "There's an elevator over there." And I said, "Yes." And they said, "How does it work?" And I just said, "Well, you push the up button." And they had not been in an elevator.
I know.
Go figure.
I know. It's so funny. It's like saying to somebody, "What was in the yellow pages?" I don't think any young person has ever even heard of a yellow pages.
And what about a phone booth, Patsy?
Oh yeah, they're gone completely.
They're gone. Or wind your watch.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's funny. It's nice that all of this is kept alive in books.
It is.
Tell us about Maureen because something wonderful happens to her. There she is in cold and dreary Boston. And how does she land up in Florida? And what's that trip like? Because you write that very well.
Maureen, the store that she worked for, which was Bradshaw's of Boston, I think, something like, yeah, of Boston. And that had closed suddenly, and she was without work. for the same reason that the other major stores are closing. And you have to pay the taxes and pay the light bill and pay people to sit at every counter. And it just becomes difficult when people can buy so many things online. So she's without work. And at the same time, she has come into the possession of a lovely golden retriever who had been trained to be a guide dog, but he was so friendly and so easily distracted that he flunked out of guide dog school. So she was out of work. The dog was out of work. She didn't know what she was going to do. Rents are high in Massachusetts, and the small amount of money that she had on hand wasn't going to last very long. When suddenly she receives a letter from a lawyer in a place in Florida that tells her she is the sole heir of a 100-year-old hotel in Haven, Florida. First, she thinks it's a scam, but she checks it out, and the lawyers appear to be legitimate. She calls her parents and says, "Do you know anything about any reason?" And they said, "We were there on vacation once. We stopped in that little town when we took you there to Disney World when you were 12, but we don't really know anybody there." But somehow, some person named Penelope Josephine Gray has left Maureen this estate. She has nothing else to do. She has this letter. The lawyers seem to be legit. She and the dog are out of work. Her lease is up on her expensive apartment in Saugus, Massachusetts. So she gasses up the old Subaru and puts the dog in, and off they go to Florida. And on the way, she stops at south of the border because she'd always wanted to. Her parents said it was just a trap to get their money, and it was just vulgar and trashy, and they weren't going to stop there. But she always wanted to. So they stop at south of the border, and it's just as magical as she thought it would be. And in there is a Zoltar machine with the fortune telling figurine in it. And out of the Zoltar machine comes a little blue card with some remarkable revelations on it that lead her into more mystery. I've had a lot of fun with the Zoltar machines. There was one now that's down on Treasure Island, Patsy, that I have to have my picture taken with pretty soon.
It was a great start, and it's so funny when you start off in Boston and it's dreary and it's miserable weather, and then she gets to Florida, and everybody who gets to Florida takes that sort of deep breath, and they're there. It's so good.
Oh,
And of course, she's inherited this inn, which is, let's say, there's some strange goings on in that inn.
something, several things going on strangely in the inn and in the whole town of Haven. Now, the citizens of Haven have managed to keep quiet about it, but the whole darn town is haunted. There's hardly a building there that doesn't have a resident ghost or more than one. Very few places are without a ghost. And within the hotel, she is suddenly surprised by a shimmering form of a very beautiful blonde woman who is always dressed in very stunning clothes, who says her name is Lorna Dubois, and that she was a starlet back in the late 30s and early 40s, who looked a lot like Jean Harlow, too much like Jean Harlow. So she was relegated to dumb blonde roles most of the time, but she enjoyed her career as a movie starlet. And she's very interested in the fact that Maureen knows a lot about style because she was a clothing buyer in Boston. And Lorna has learned to borrow clothes simply by borrowing the essence of the clothes. For instance, if she sees something in Maureen's closet that she wants to wear, she just borrows the essence of it and she is wearing it while the item still remains in the closet. I had so much fun creating Lorna and creating ghosts in general because no one can say I'm wrong. Whatever the ghosts say, um, Lorna tells Maureen that a ghost can appear at their best age when they look their best and were the happiest and felt the best. And Lorna appears, I think Lorna appears at the age of 28. Although when she died by tripping over a wire when she was playing summer stock in Haven, when she was in her 70s and fell into the orchestra pit and broke her neck. But she appears as a 28-year-old beautiful starlet. So I choose to believe that, and I say that, and no one can prove I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I think everybody reading the books will agree. That's exactly
That's
how it should work. You don't want to come back.
heck no. You don't want to get old and sick. You want to come back young and happy and
That's
healthy.
that's
Sure.
it.
Why not?
And of course, being in this area, perfect area of Florida, where we had lots of famous people coming down, all during the 20s and 30s, and before that,
Yep.
of course, but particularly 20s and 30s, it was a vacation hotspot across America. Everybody wanted to be here.
And I was a travel writer before I became a fiction writer. I got to visit a lot of the nice places in Florida that people like to come, and I didn't have to go very far because everybody wanted to be here. I even had a book on Florida Gulf Coast Travel Smart for John Muir. And I also wrote about antiques and collectibles, which you will find show up in a lot of my books. Mostly antiques that I wish I owned, but I didn't have the money for them. I gave them to either Maureen or to Lee in the Witch City books. Lee has a clear lucite kitchen set, tables and chairs, all clear lucite. I saw that when I was doing travel in a antique store in Gainesville, and it was hideously expensive, and I really desired it. And I don't own it, but I was able to give it to Lee.
That's nice, exactly. And it
Yeah,
it makes your books so interesting because in both series you describe the furniture, you describe how it looks, and you throw in some history. It gives it depth, and I know with Haunted Haven, what's so much fun, and my sister Natalie, as the connoisseur of cozy mysteries,
yes,
loves that because she always has ideas. She really should have been one of those people who bought houses and renovated them because she
yeah,
always has ideas how things should look, changes here and just this thing here, and you do that now. Of course, Maureen discovers when she gets to the hotel that there are some problems, including not perhaps not having enough guests, or having some guests who never, not just the
yeah.
ghosts who never leave, but some real guests who inhabit the place.
Yep, she does. And I have had a lot of fun redecorating the Haven Inn. Uh, some of her first guests, Trent and Pierre, who come to visit and just visualize how it could look if there was the wherewithal to do it. And they did her a book of sketches of renovating the hotel. She never does have enough money to do it all at once, but throughout the books, she is making improvements. Sometimes it's just changing the draperies at the beginning because they were old and dull, and she got a vibrant color. And the previous owner happened to be a hoarder and has a storage locker full of all kinds of great stuff I can pull out, pull out anytime
That's
I need
right.
it.
And
Yeah.
and actually, haunting license is part of this whole operation to make
Yes.
money so that she can continue the redecorating.
I have to back up a little. There was a murder in one of the early books. I don't want to be a spoiler. That takes place on a certain portion of the porch that runs all the way around. As the old hotels often, for cooling purposes, had the wide covered porches that wrap around the hotel. And there was one section there where there had been a death. And it wasn't haunted, fortunately, but people just avoided it. And Trent and Pierre had suggested that someday she might put a gift shop in that place that would cover up the scene of a crime and be an attractive thing. So throughout the book, she is building toward that. In the new book, we've added a tiki bar with a thatched roof, which you can look forward to in coming in the
Wow.
next book. And I am just having as much fun as Maureen is in redecorating this place. Natalie's going to like it. We've made some more improvements.
She loved it from the minute there were the rocking chairs on the front porch, the
Yeah.
wraparound front porch, which we love the idea, and of course she loved the idea of the rocking chairs and having
Natalie's
books up
like
there.
me. I'm a visual reader. I want to see. I want to see the book as a movie in my head. So the ones that have a lot of description make me happy because I can see them, and I do that. Some people think I overdo it, but I don't care. I like it that way. And I like to describe the clothes and the dishes and the scenery and the trees and the flowers and everything that you can see that adds to the ambiance.
Yes, you definitely create an ambiance, and it is lots of fun. It makes it's deep, with enriched in texture. There's always something new, and it just I love this kind of writing. It makes it interesting. You come away, you've learned something, and you've enjoyed. I love the historical characters who are, of course, appear as ghosts. Tell us some of the ones that you've
Oh,
been able to select from our area, people who lived here or traveled to this area.
Babe Ruth shows up in Haven at the Ellen Lounge, which I moved from Cedar Key to Haven. It used to really be a place. Dan and I went up to Cedar Key just last week because we really like it there and we hadn't been in a long time. And there really was at one time an absolutely legendary lounge called the L&M Lounge. And Dan and I went there back in our more or less misspent youth. And we were talking to a waitress there, and we mentioned we knew where it was. It was long since closed, and she said, "Oh, I'm too young to have ever been to the L&M Lounge, but I remember it." She said, "My dad said he once rode a horse in there." I said, "Yeah, that's the place." So I moved that place to Haven, and Babe Ruth shows up in Haven once in a while, especially if the Yankees are playing. I may even have a horse to the
Yeah, I was just
L&M.
thinking we need a
Yeah,
horse. Uh,
I could do that as long as it's a ghost on a ghost horse. Why not?
why not? Why not?
The current owners would put up with it, but anyway, Babe Ruth would like it. So he's there, and I have named the suites in the hotel after various movie stars or luminaries of some sort who have stayed there. And I checked to make sure that these various luminaries had at least been in Florida at the time I said they were. So we have the Arthur Godfrey suite, the Dawn Wells suite, the Fred Astaire suite. I can't. It's like naming the Seven Dwarfs again. But there are plenty of movie stars who have been there. Oh, Jimmy Stewart
Oh yeah.
was there because he made a baseball film while he was here, and that we use that in one of the plots. And oh, it's just such fun to get to not have it plotted ahead because you can put stuff in and back it up and stick clues in that you hadn't thought of before. When I do that, I say, "Oh, I wish I'd thought of that," and then I say, "Oh, I guess I did."
I guess you did. I guess.
The writing itself, Mary Higgins Clark said, I don't remember whether she said it on your show or whether I heard it elsewhere, but she said, somebody said, "Do you enjoy writing?" And she paused and smiled and said, "I enjoy having written." And because sometimes that's the way it is. When you've completed the day's word count, that's a good feeling. The doing it and backing up and fiddling around with a sentence for 15 minutes to move words around, that is not as much fun as seeing the completed work. I turned in copy edits on the newest Haven book just recently, and it is such a good feeling to finish that. My editor, Elizabeth Trout, did not make a lot of suggestions, and I was able to fix the things that she mentioned, and it was very satisfying. I enjoyed having written. Hey, you put me there when I had curly hair with lovely Mary Higgins Clark.
How did you meet her?
We were both speakers at the Suncoast Writers Conference some years back. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but it's a conference that no longer exists. But it was at the Hilton Hotel, I think, at Bayfront. I'm not sure about the hotel, but I think it was. And it was an annual event. I've met several wonderful writers there, and Mary Higgins Clark just stands out particularly. She was so gracious and so real. Actually, I had heard her speak, but then I met her in the ladies' room just before that picture was taken. And she was wearing a beautiful rose-colored suit, and it was at the time we were all having our colors done. Remember, when you had fall colors, you had summer colors, and all that stuff. So I asked her if she had her colors done, and she had, and she was wearing exactly the right shade of rose that she should. And she was just delightful and friendly and a real person, not snooty at all.
Oh,
Just
not
like,
at all. She was
no.
absolutely delightful. And you're right, she was always dressed perfectly. Of course,
Mhm.
that came so much from the fact that she had been a stewardess. What do we call them now? Flight attendants. But she was a
Attended.
stewardess. And as a matter of fact, she was in Time magazine. They had a picture where they were taking some photographs of, I think it was a evacuation from Romania, one of those Eastern countries, and she was a stewardess for that airplane. And of course, she was so beautiful in those days, and thin, and like stewardesses had to be. You had to
Yeah.
be shapely. And
Yeah.
there she is at a very young age, caught in a photograph that appeared in Time magazine. So it was
Oh,
wonderful.
yeah.
And of course, once you're a stewardess, I think you always learn to dress well because that's what they really went through. She always dressed beautifully and stood out. And of course, she told me, I remember the first time she was on my program, she forgot that she was on radio, and she actually gave out her home address.
Oh, I remember you told me that.
Yes, she had managed to get my home telephone number and call me and say, I said my home address, and I said, "Oh, that's okay. We'll cut it out." But we talked many times, and she always would say how when she started writing and became a best-selling author, they used to send her on tour with an assistant. Usually, a young editor from the publishing company would take her on her tour and take her from city to city, handle all her luggage, all
Oh,
the logistics. She said they don't do that anymore. I said no,
oh, more.
no. But she was wonderful.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes. She's missed.
Exactly. So do you tour anymore?
I don't do airports graciously anymore. I'm old and they're germy and you have to walk a lot in them. And I just don't enjoy airports at all. I avoid flying as much as I can. My husband, fortunately, doesn't mind driving. So we road trip a lot.
Are you doing any events?
I'm going to go to NINC, the Novelists Incorporated, because it is, as it always is, at the Trade Winds in St. Pete Beach. So that's not much of a commute for me. And it's in the Trade Winds, of course, is a delightful hotel. And it's 5 days. I've already made my reservation in the hotel and for the conference. It's for writers. It's not a readers conference. It's totally a learning experience for writers, both traditionally published, and there's a lot for indie publishers. This will be my third NINC conference. And I learned first great respect for the indie writers. They have to do so much work, and some of them are extremely successful. I have met some six-figure income self-published people, very impressive. And I enjoy it very much, not only for the content and for the people I've met there. A number of writers that you would recognize that you've had on go to NINC. Some of the Wickeds go. Just she writes the Burl and Edwina series. I forget her first name already. She was there last time. Harper St. James was there. Quite a few.
Good conference. It's very good. I think it's so nice what you've done here with this second series. We're going to talk in a minute about the next Witch City release.
Okay.
I want to show one more time the wonderful covers. Kensington is famous for doing beautiful covers, and they have done it justice. In this series, of course, Finn has to be on the cover because that's what he wants.
He loves being a cover boy.
Exactly. And these are wonderful covers. Beautiful. They do such a wonderful job for you. Before we leave, let's talk for a minute about this one and talk about beautiful covers.
They take my suggestions for covers very seriously because when I was advertising manager, I used to do layout. So sometimes I actually do a paste up layout of the way I think it should look. And very often, because this is much better than my paste up layout, but they do use the components that I suggest. And in this one, Orion, my wonderful clairvoyant cat that's in all of the Witch City Mysteries, is in his director's chair because in Salem a movie is being made, and it's being made about a real building that's there where the witch trials were held called the Witch House, and that's the real witch house in the background there. I had been in the witch house, but on a tour when I was in high school, but I wanted to get some photographs inside and because I was going to have some happenings in that building. And I did go up the summer before last to have had done the book that quickly. But anyway, I went, and I am really happy with this book. I may be wrong, but I think Natalie is going to love it, and I think it may be the best one yet. I really like this book. I like the plot. I like the murder. I like.
We like everything about all of the books, and this one, as I said, I love this cover.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
Look at it and look at it.
I
So
know
pretty.
they do a wonderful job. So
They have assigned me two artists, one who does the artwork and another one just to do that lettering.
that's really great, and they've accomplished something really great here because it's distinctive, and of course, your books are often found on the end cap of Barnes and Noble, which is always exciting. When that happened, the first time it happened, when you heard, it's nice to have your books in a bookstore. That there are still bookstores and wonderful Barnes and Noble. We're so happy that they keep going because they are so important for authors. So your books were in Barnes and Noble, but when you got on the end cap, that's very special, isn't it?
It was. I think that was a special arrangement with Kensington. I hope they continue to do that. It's lovely.
The important thing, as you've discovered, and now with you, because you've had so much wonderful publicity with Kensington, they've done so much for you. I even saw your books on the end cap at the checkout counter in Target, which
Yes.
now that was impressive.
Yep, I know. That was a surprise too. I know you can order them from Target, but they don't always have them present in the stores, but at that time they did. And can we talk about the next book in the series?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Of course, we have followed Lee and Pete's romance from the cute meet in book one through the romance and through the engagement and through the marriage, and it and she's going to have baby. And so the name of the book 15 is Sugar and Spite. And on the cover of that, we will see Orion and a baby carriage. And the baby carriage is full of presents and a lot of candy. And I won't tell you any more about that, although it's finished and ready to go. Now, next exciting thing that came to me from Kensington is I just writing to my editor, Elizabeth, with a little 2 sentence pitch. I said, now that Lee's going to have a baby, how would Kensington feel about it if I switched point of view to Aunt Ibby? We keep the same characters, but Aunt Ibby and her girlfriends, Louisa Abney Babcock and Betsy, I would get a chance to earn their sleuthing chops and would extend the series, and but with a different point of view. She loved it. And she talked to the powers that be and her fellow wizard editors. And the next thing I knew, I had a contract for 3 more books, hardcover. They're going to have a new title. They won't be Witch City Mysteries. There's talk about Wicked Salem Mysteries. I'm not sure about that. But they gave me, at my advanced age, a brand new hardcover 3 contract, which I signed. And now
Yeah, you're gonna sign that real fast.
I'm off to the races on a new series.
Let's step back a little and tell people that with the Witch City Mysteries, it's vice versa of what happens in Haunted Haven. In Haunted Haven, you have somebody moving from Boston down to Florida. And
Yep.
in Witch City Mysteries, Lee Barrett was in Florida. She had gone through a little bit of a rough patch and decided
Yep.
to go back home,
Home.
to your hometown of
Yep.
Salem, Massachusetts. And luckily, she had her aunt there, Aunt
Mhm.
Ibby. And Aunt Ibby almost runs away with the books from day one because of course, when we start off, we know that we have Lee Barrett. She's going back. She's had a rough spell in Florida. And we hope right away from the beginning, we hope that she's going to have a better life. And then we
Yeah.
discover she's going to have a very full life because she's going to land up with a cat named Orion.
Married to a NASCAR driver who unfortunately died in an automobile accident. And she comes back. She was on TV in Florida. She was with a home shopping channel. And she comes home to the house where her Aunt Ibby, Isabel, had raised her because her parents, she was orphaned when she was 5. And I don't want to do any spoilers there. But anyway, Aunt Ibby raised her in this beautiful old home on Winter Street in Salem. And people who go to Salem, you'd be surprised at how many people, because I mentioned real places in Salem, restaurants and all, and how many of the readers deliberately go to Salem and to do the things that Lee did, to go to the restaurants and to walk on Winter Street. And a lot of them want to know which house on Winter Street it was. And then I write back and message them and say, I'll tell you, but then I have to kill you if you tell anybody which house it is.
You do have fans. I remember when it started, the people just gravitated to your books. They got so excited. And part of it was very much Aunt Ibby, because Aunt Ibby is not your typical old lady aunt. She is a dynamo of energy and intelligence.
And she's very techy, much more than I am. Aunt Ibby has all the latest gadgets and just can talk with any of the technical children just as well as they do. And she has red hair. It's always going to be red, she says. And she's 60 something, which she admits to, a very trim figure, has a number of gentleman friends who show up occasionally in the various books, and drives an old Buick.
She
And
is a fan favorite. She is a fan favorite
she is,
character. And she
so
deserves her own
she deserves
series.
a series of her own.
Yeah,
She really
she
does.
certainly does. And it's appropriate that they would be hardback, because with her background as a librarian, it's what
Mhm.
she would appreciate, right?
I think she will appreciate that. Yes.
Yes, I think it would. It's much more proper that it is
Mhm.
hardback for her.
I'm
So
loving it.
I think so. And librarians all over the country will love it, because I'm sure they all love Aunt Ibby.
And they will love her even better in hardcover because they will last a lot longer on the shelves than
Exactly,
even the mass
exactly.
market ones. Yeah.
And I'm sure the covers will be gorgeous, like Kensington does them. So
I talked to Elizabeth about that. I said, I'm sure there'll be a different look to the covers. And she said, yes, they didn't know what it was going to be yet, but it would be a different look from Haven or from which city.
they'll be worthy of Aunt Ibby and what what she
Sure.
represents.
Hmm.
Good taste and intelligence. We'd gotten the first book. Natalie was like third or fourth chapter, and she said, "Oh, Aunt Ibby." Everything after that was Aunt Ibby. So it's just
Natalie's very perceptive
yeah,
to
she
pick up
is, and she knew. I'm telling you right now, book one, when she read it, she was not only impressed. She said, "Oh, this is an author. She is going to really be a big hit," and she was right. She was so excited all the time, and we, of course, we have our fingers crossed. That we're hoping really somebody. This is such an ideal series for a streaming show. As you said, you like to write so it's cinematic that you want to see it in
yeah,
your head, and
yeah,
that's what you do for the readers. I do see that. I could produce this tomorrow if I win the lottery.
yeah. Oh, yeah, let's do that.
That's what we have to do. We have to keep buying those lotto tickets, and maybe we'll win one and we can produce it ourselves, because Hollywood, we need something fresh. And the nice thing with Orion, he's not intrusive. Orion is just there. He's a
Yeah,
cat who is there. He has a presence.
he does not talk.
No, he does not talk. Just his presence alone is enough to steer you in the right direction.
Yes, he's very special.
Very. And of course, he's always on the cover. Wow, Carol, it's been wonderful talking to you. I think it's you. I'm so proud to know you. We've got all your books, and they look so beautiful on the shelf.
We've been friends a long time, Patsy.
I know it's
Yes,
crazy
yeah.
what we've gone through these years. It's been amazing, but I want people to get this book, and this is the Haunting License. And I love it because, of course, I love fishing too. And I remember getting my first fishing license. And the fishing tournament in the book is really good, because you really want Maureen to make money so she can keep up redecorating that hotel.
Yep. I hope she keeps decorating for many more books.
Oh, wow. She's got a lot of rooms, and she's
Yes.
having fun doing it, and you're having fun creating it. And you have really created a wonderful series. And everybody, this is book number 3, The Haunting License. And you can go to Carol J. Perry's website, and she's also on social media. And Carol, Thank you so much for joining me today on Joy on Paper Live.
Thank you, Patsy. Love you. Give my love to Natalie.
I will. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was so much fun to talk to Carol about her book, Haunting License. It's a wonderful book, and I hope you'll get it. Meanwhile, I hope you will also subscribe to Joy on Paper Live. The important thing is to become a subscriber and to comment, like, and share. And there's, I have all sorts of controls here that I didn't know. I just started this Joy on Paper Live program. It's just been really exciting to do it, to be able to bring all of these authors to you, because I hope they will inspire you to start writing. Just learn the lessons that they talk about, that they've learned along the way. And the most important thing is not giving up. One of the things is you listen to these interviews on Joy on Paper Live, you'll discover authors love what they're writing about, and they get so excited about it. With somebody like Carol, here she is, 10 years. She's written 15 books in one series and 4 books in a second series, and all the time she's having fun doing it. This is wonderful. It's summertime. You can just binge on them, and all of the books in Haunted Haven series are great. There are 3 books and perfect for binging, sitting on the beach or in a hammock under a tree. Wherever you are, just get these books and relax, enjoy, and take yourself to a very magical area of the world, Haunted Haven, Glockenspiel. I like that, Glockenspiel. So I think that's what you hear when you do subscribing, and just do Glockenspiel. I like it. There's all sorts of stuff. Fun. I haven't used these before. I saw them and I didn't know really what they were for. I like this. This is fun. Okay, well, if I feel clownish, that's perfect. That one I've heard a lot on training videos for doing YouTube channels. I hear that one. I like that one too. And then here's something I think a little more subtle. Isn't it fun? My goodness. When you think about it, 3 months ago, I didn't know anything about YouTube. I didn't know anything about this computer program that allowed me to do this. I didn't know anything about doing interviews live on air. I just didn't know anything about it. And I had to teach myself, and I did. You can never give up. You have to keep trying. And so it's been fun. Oh, wow. I have one more sound. Let me see if I can get that. I don't know what sound that's supposed to be. It doesn't play anything. Oh, it's spooky music. Oh, that'd be nice.
Turn the house down.